Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for a second round of talks. So we have Zoe Mann today with us right now. She's going to talk us about democratizing data literacy for community action. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you guys so much for coming in today. As she said, I am going to be talking about a project that we've been doing in St. Petersburg, Florida, called Data Literacy for Community Action. Very quick about me, I'm a social sciences librarian, so a little bit different than some of the other people here. My research focuses on data and information literacy, as well as equity and student success, and I have been the project manager for our project, Data Literacy for Community Action, which has been going on for about 2 years at this point. Tiny bit about University of South Florida, where I'm coming from. There are 3 campuses of our university. They are all in the Tampa Bay area of Florida, which is on the west coast part of Florida. If you know Florida at all, we are an R1 institute, meaning we are heavily research focused, and we have a population of about 50,000 students. And one of our university goals is lifelong learning for the community, which is what I used as an excuse for doing this research. So my agenda today is I want to talk to you a little bit about what data literacy for community action is. I'm going to talk you through the pilot program that we did in the fall of 2024. I'm going to show you the online courses, which we have just made live, talk to you a little bit about the feedback we've gotten so far, and then a whole 5 minutes for questions, because I know this is a quick one. So data literacy for community action. This is our cute little logo we made on Canva. And this one does say St. Pete. Our hope is one day for data literacy for community action to be a larger project, something that can be used all around different communities. But the real special thing about it is it's very grassroots. And so we've been hearing about some of the larger scale projects, but data literacy for community action is very much a grassroots project. It's a collaborative project right now in the community of St. Petersburg, Florida, and we provide data literacy that's related to health equity in a non-curricular environment, which just means it's not a traditional classroom experience. And we've done that through in-person classes. We've done it through online workshops. We now have online self-directed classes and online materials. Our audience is very much for nonprofit groups, interested citizens. We are doing this outside of academia. This is for our community. And it's really for the people who might feel like they've heard the word data, they know that they're supposed to be doing stuff with data, but they feel a little bit nervous to just get started with it. So this is really that data 101, so that people feel comfortable starting to get used with data. Because it is grassroots, we really want it to be very hyper local. So we're using local data sets, and we've invited local data researchers to come in and talk about that. My QR code seems to have fallen off of the web page there, but that's okay. We do have a guide, and I'm gonna show it to you real quick, hopefully. And it's if you just look up DLCA USF, you will find it. And our guide provides not only all of the slides from our presentations that we did in person so that you can go through them. It's got some introduction. We also then linked it because we used our university library, we used our public library in the community, and we used a philanthropic group called Foundation for a Healthy St. Pete. And so all of these actually link out to our public library so that everyone in the public who's using this has access to these books. Some of these books we thought were really good, so we actually had the public library purchase them as a part of this project. And then we related out to some of our resources that we thought would be helpful. And then also self-paced learning. One of the things that our public library provides is LinkedIn Learning, which has a lot of resources using Excel, using SPSS, some of the other more high-tech stuff. We also linked out to Khan Academy. Again, people don't always feel that comfortable with numbers, so we wanted them to feel a little bit more comfortable. And then the Florida Electronic Library is a resource, and almost every state has a consortial resource like that is access to all sorts of peer-reviewed databases. See if I can get back to my slides. Yay, I did it. So again, our planning partners, oh, it disappeared again. Oh, well, is the University of South Florida Libraries, which again, we are 3 campuses. The Foundation for Healthy St. Pete, they were the kind ones who actually gave us some money for this. We were able to pay stipends to our speakers who came in and talked about the local data that they are using. And then our St. Petersburg library system. Our St. Petersburg library system is under our city system. So we were able to get support from the city, both in marketing as well as not only actual funding, but spaces for us to use. Our pilot happened in the fall of 2024. We plan to provide 4 in-person workshops. And then I live in Florida and we had 2 hurricanes, which was really exciting. And so because of those hurricanes, we did have to pivot a little bit. And we had to move one of our workshops completely online. And then one of them was hybrid. We also created 4 dedicated reference hours. If you're not used to being a librarian, a reference consultation is where you come in and talk to a librarian one-on-one and they will help you to find resources. We thought that didn't sound fun, sexy, and cool, so we called it Speed Date with Data. No one showed up, but that's okay. So we learned something with that. As I said, a lot of changes had to be made because of hurricanes. So if you're ever thinking of, again, a grassroots kind of thing, think about the weather systems that you might be dealing with, but also be able to pivot because sometimes things change. All of our funding, as I said, came from the Foundation for Healthy St. Pete. They funded us so that we could have some food, so that we could pay stipends to our speakers. And most importantly, they funded us to pay for instructional designers. And the instructional designers were used for our online courses, and we're still in the process of doing that. Like I said, we thought Speed Date with Data was a really cool idea. You could come in, talk about like what kind of data you were needing, what kind of research questions you had. We could connect you to that local data. It's still a good idea. It didn't happen. Maybe something online instead of in person. We were really trying to, again, meet the needs of a lot of nonprofit groups. So we tried to do it during work hours because we thought this would be part of their work, but perhaps after hours would have been better. Our workshops, our first one was Data for Everyone. This was really a 101 kind of situation. We talked about what data was. The workshop 2, which had to move online, was finding reliable data. So that was using websites to find free online reliable data, as well as online data that's available to people through our public library. Again, some of our users were from our university, but we really wanted this to be everyone in the community would have access. Next was evaluating data because as librarians, we teach information literacy. We teach people how to evaluate information if it's particularly useful. Data is a part of information, so we needed to teach that as well. And then our last one, which was our most popular one, was data visualization and storytelling. Again, planning, learned a lot of fun lessons with that. Data visualization and storytelling, we had it in the smallest space and we didn't have room for everybody because everybody wanted to come in. It was also free, so people could sign up and they might not show up. We also had some issues with some of our software of people knowing when to come. Another thing that we did that we thought was really clever and maybe was less clever than we thought was to hold it at different public libraries and different spaces around the community. Again, we were trying to be very grassroots. We were trying to get into the community where they were. But because a lot of this was advertised through our Foundation for a Healthy St. Pete, they have a center called the Center for Healthy or the Center for Health Equity, and people kept thinking it was going to be over there, and we couldn't hold all of them there. So marketing was a big thing that we learned about. If I had to do it over again, just with these workshops, I would hire an intern specifically to be doing the marketing because as a librarian, I'm used to trying to do everything on my own, but actually you don't have to do that, especially if you have funding. You can hire someone who's smarter and better at it, and that's what I would do. You can see some images of some people working hard doing different things during the data. Our online courses, we used our online content to create workshops. The workshops are about an hour each. And again, this is where the majority of our funding went. And we were able to hire from the University of South Florida Innovative Education Department to create those online courses. Those we had to buy out courses from them, so they did cost us about $5,000 a module, but that's actually a really good price. We used a resource called Articulate Rise, which allows to be embedded into different websites. And we even got contract to do some video editing. Since it's gone up, we've had over 1,400 views, and it went up in July. So I will just show you very quickly what they kind of look like. So this is one of the modules. You can see our videos here. They're very interactive. There's quizzes in them, and you can go through them, and they have been nice little things. We also, like I said, we're able to embed them into our courses, so they could actually embed here if you wanted to do it from the site. And we're trying to get everyone to have access to them. So this is our Foundation for Healthy St. Pete, and they embedded the courses as well. So results quickly. So here's some of the feedback. People really liked it. This is a data quilt that people made about water data. It was about how often you were able to go to the beach due to all of the red tide. People said this is a great service to the community. My favorite was someone said, are librarians different than they used to be? Didn't really realize that we were there to teach you things. We're not just there to say, shh, I'm actually probably the loudest person in my library. Tips is to create strong partnerships with local groups. You don't want to have too many people involved because then there's a lot of ideas, but you do want enough people to do the work. I was the project manager for this. And you should definitely have maybe a leader assigned to each different section. Secure funding with a contract. That's very good because you want money. Look for outside funding, harder to do in the US these days. We are now including students. I've got a student intern who's helping me to collect data points for us to do a data walk later in the fall, in the spring. Be open to working with other community partners. We found a great group that actually brought computers in and loans out computers to people who don't have computers. It's so again, you could just kind of keep finding more and more partners who want to be a part of it. Build flexibility into your programming because sometimes there's things like hurricanes. What we also learned is we were trying to do too much in too long of a time. And so I think these workshops really should be about an hour. And within that, your formula should be introduce a data concept, share a local data set or data portal that shows that concept. It might not be local if you're like in the United States, maybe it's just the census. Have local research talk about the concept and how they use that data concept with local data set, and then have a group activity or discussion to talk about the concept. So this is an anthropologist who has been sonifying data about red tide that happened in the Tampa Bay area. And she's showing the video of people doing the musical sonification that she created from it. And then earlier I showed you some people coloring. That was them making their own. It wasn't a sonification, but it was a visualization that wasn't as traditional. So in conclusion, it's been a great way to share expertise with the community. You should always try and build sustainability into the project because we don't want to just get people started and then leave them hanging. So we do have more and more projects in there. Sometimes administration changes can make priorities shift. This was the Foundation for Healthy St. Pete is they do health equity through racial equity. And so that has been a little bit more difficult with some of the new laws that have been taking place in Florida and the United States. But we're continuing to work on the mission towards the university. So make sure that you stay within the letter of the law. If there are laws that get in your way, make sure you follow them. Work with the community to see what they need, because obviously there's no point in providing something if it's not what the people want. Don't schedule during hurricane / insert your own disaster season. Use local examples to explain ideas. Always give people time to do hands-on work, because when you talk about data, it can make people's eyes kind of cross if they are not data experts or data lovers. And scaffold, because you're going to be dealing with different levels of experience and comfort with data. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Questions? Yeah, there you go.
Hello. So dissemination and getting people talking about data is one of the biggest problems that I have. How do you scaffold people who are complete beginners to people that you might find in this room?
So I think that having a data concept and then letting people who are maybe more experts kind of lead that conversation when you're doing it could work with that way. I also think a flipped classroom. So now that we have these online modules, I think it's going to be easier for us to do the short session. So then you know what we're talking about. So that way, if people don't have that basic background, they have the resources. And again, we try and make them very simplified and very easy for non-experts. And we write all over it. You do not need to be doing math. This is not statistics. This is just about understanding the language of data, learning the ABCs so that that's what we call it, data literacy. It's just like any other kind of literacy. You just need to know how to speak it. You don't have to be able to read the entire encyclopedia and speak it out loud.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks for the great example. Can you talk a little bit more about the audiences you defined and what they were looking for as they came in? Like, was it community building? Was it like technical skills? Was it creative representation, like the sonification? Like, what were they asking for as you talked with them more?
Yes, so we were really working with this Foundation for Healthy St. Pete, which like I said, is a health equity philanthropic group, and they have an amazing base of small nonprofit groups that they work with, and their concept was that these were the groups that weren't going to be coming in, and a lot of these people are, for example, there's a woman who lives in a neighborhood. She had a beauty shop, and during COVID, it shut down because no one was coming in. And so she turned it into computer classes so that the senior citizens could sign up to get their COVID shots. She doesn't have any data knowledge. She doesn't come with that, but she has a nonprofit now. And so she wants to know how she can be using data to push her nonprofit forward. At the same time, we had experts who are coming in who are anthropological researchers who were saying, well, I have a problem with the definitions in the census between Hispanic and Spanish speaking. And so just having that conversation, and again, that's why it's so important to give space for conversation within it. But we also had people coming in from government groups who said, oh, we saw this because, again, we had the city of St. Petersburg advertising it. And so we got them as well. But really, as a university librarian, I'm used to people coming in at all levels. And so I am pretty agile because of that. And so I was comfortable changing it as I needed. And I'm always starting with, what do you guys want to talk about? And if I need to pivot, I'm happy to pivot. Thank you.
So you'd mentioned that the data visualization and storytelling was the most attended. Did you find that most of the people who attended that actually would have benefited from the initial workshops because they weren't actually ready for that part that they thought they were? And are there any lessons learned around kind of helping people understand how to actually properly prepare for that point? Because I find that people just want to create visuals, but they don't know all the work that goes into it.
Yeah, well, we started with some of our main basics in all of them. And we said, for some of you that have attended this, it might be, a little bit of a reminder. But one of the things that we really pushed is our data information knowledge pyramid, and really talking about data is the bottom part of it, and that leads to information, which leads to knowledge, which leads to wisdom. And we kind of talked about this concept in every single one of our workshops so that we could kind of get people to be thinking about it as a theory rather than just, I want this tool and I want to know how to do it. And again, that's why having the guide that we did, which then points you to like, here's how to actually use BI or something like that, because I'm not going to be able to do that in an hour. But having, the local researcher, like the anthropologist, come in and show how she's done something also helped. So I hope that answered. Yeah. Thank you.